Hi everyone and welcome to the All Things ITSM Global Podcast. We're coming to you from FUSION15 in New Orleans. I'm Kirsty McGowan. I'm here with Mark Smalley.
Hi.
Carlos Casanova.
Hello, Kirsty.
And we'd like to welcome David Mainville from Navvia.
Well, thank
nice
you for having me.
Here.
Yeah, it's a
Welcome,
pleasure.
David.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, Dave, one of the topics that always fascinates me is when people embark on IT service management improvement initiatives, some are more successful than others. What's your take on the things that determine success?
Sure. There's a few things, from my opinion. One of them is taking an out-of-the-box approach. That's one thing. You know, if you ask me what my thoughts are about out-of-the-box, I'd also say I believe in the Great Pumpkin, Santa Claus, and the Easter Bunny. Because the reality is, there really is no such thing as completely out of the box. Perhaps for smaller organizations, you know, they could adopt or adapt to a process from a tool. But I think the larger organizations, at least from our experience, needs to customize workflows. They need to really customize the forms. And to do that comes to the next point of why I think ITSM initiatives fail, and that's because of the lack of requirements. People will design a process at a very high level, and I'd give that over to a developer and say, implement this.
Right.
And they look at it and say, implement what? There's no detail, there's no tool requirements, there's no field values, there's no specifics. So I think another one is the lack of a requirements approach to designing processes.
Yeah, you seem to be touching on the topic of multidisciplinary collaboration, sort of getting various disciplines to talk to each. What's your take on that?
Well, that's the third reason ITSM initiatives fail.
We didn't practice.
We did not practice. It's really not getting the right people involved. Because if you bring a bunch of technical people in a room, let's say people who are familiar with implementing a tool, there's a lot of great tools out there, they're going to take a very tool-centric focus. If they're an outside consulting firm, they might try to implement the last project they did, which might not fit in your environment, right?
Yeah.
Or if they're really process-centric, they might get so high in the air that it really doesn't translate to anything in terms of work instructions, procedures, or technical requirements. So I think there needs to be a multidisciplinary approach, as you put it, where you bring in people who understand the process, the business requirements, the technology that's going to be implementing the process, and have them work together.
So how do you determine who those right people are?
Oh, well, you know, it varies from organization to organization. But I think, you know, if you're fortunate enough to have a service management office in place, I think those are the folks that are core. Because a good service management office already has representation from those different areas. Otherwise, I mean, you really have to reach out into the organization and bring in the various stakeholders. So you need some executive sponsorship. You need people who understand or who are responsible for implementing the tools. You need some folks who really understand the business requirements, the process owners, for example, if there's such a role in place. So you have to look across the organization and who understands the business, who understands the tools, you know, who can help you get it done.
But I guess that's where the challenge is, right? Because, you know, we've all seen it. We've been in the space for long enough where you get, you know, an organization reaches out. Hey, Carlos, I need, you know, CMDB. David, you know, Mark, I need change management. It's like, well, is that really what you need? You know, and, you know, and those of us that have been in space, we will ask that question. It's like, you know, what are you trying to do? Why do you want to do that?
That's right.
You know, we'll go through that, but that's not necessarily the case with everyone, right? And I think that's where a lot of organizations end up failing, whether they don't ask outside and get folks like ourselves that are saying, well, you know, do you really want a CMDB, or do you just kind of have to have a better insight into how things are interrelated? Well, yeah, that's really what we need. It's like, oh, okay, because the other one comes with a lot of overhead that you need to put in place. Oh no, we can't do that. Okay, so we can still achieve your end goal that you were trying to get there. But I think that's where the problem is, you know, where I've experienced is they're asking one thing and maybe needing something else.
And I think part of the issue there is, as IT people, we tend to always go to a tool as a solution. So you have a problem, the silver bullet's a tool. And that's not the case. You don't need a CMDB. You need to understand the impact of a change on your infrastructure. I think the first place to start is business outcomes. So what's the outcome you're trying to do?
That's exactly what I was just going to say. It's not you shouldn't look at the process. You say, what am I going to achieve first? And what do I need to put in place to achieve that?
Yeah, and you know, it's hard because, as you all know, not everyone gets that. And you can try your best to explain it, but there are some people who just don't get it and will always gravitate to the tool. And they're the ones who are going to come back 6 months later and say, you know, maybe we should have listened to you in the first place.
Or the tool failed.
Yes.
And they
Right.
blame it on the tool.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's, and we see that all the time, right? It's like, well, the tool didn't do what we needed to. Well, you were trying to implement your 15-year-old tool in this new tool and basically redo all those screens and all, and that was fundamentally the problem.
We call that lift and shift.
Lift and
Take all your
shift, yeah.
old problems and shift it
Yeah.
over to the new tool.
Exactly.
So you're moving to a new tool. Why? Because the other one didn't work. So why are you
Well,
trying to
they're
pick
gonna
up everything you did in that tool and make the new tool work the same way?
I mean, sometimes
Exactly.
to the extent visually, make it, no, but the field was over on the left side,
Yeah.
and we've seen it, and it's crazy. Like, so you want to customize this new tool that you just spent $1 million or whatever on to look like the old one
That you
then-
hated?
that you hated. Yeah, it's
Well,
it's
yeah,
crazy.
and you know what? What I'm seeing is it's all, so people, sales guys come in, they sell a new tool to an organization. You're going to get this up and running real quick. It's a SaaS application.
Yeah.
It's like you just turn it on and ready
Set
to
up
go.
EXC and you're good to go, right?
So guess what? You got 6 weeks to do it. So how can you take any other approach than a lift and shift?
Yeah.
Then everybody wonders why it fails.
Right.
And it fails. I would say probably 70% of the
Yeah,
implementations fail.
I would say so. When they
At
try
least
and
the
do that
first,
fast.
second, and
Yeah.
third attempt. Fourth attempt usually.
Yeah, you might get it on the
You might
fourth
get it
one.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgive my ignorance, but how long's Navvia been around?
Oh, we've been around for 15 years, and we were basically founded by myself and my partner Carl Beach. And Carl and I started the company with the vision of creating a solution to, so, there's a lot of people here on this panel here today and our colleagues who really know service management, but might not have the tools and the templates to really do it themselves.
Yep.
And so Navvia's vision was to bring together tools, templates, software, so it would enable anyone who's implementing service management processes or tools by giving them a process designer and other capabilities to really do what the consultants do, but give them the tools and the productivity gains of automation to help them do it. And that was the vision, and that's the Navvia process designer.
Yeah, but speaking of consultants, in those 15 years, have you seen any shift in approaches that consultants apply to get the most value out of their investments, or their clients' investments?
So we've had a consulting division within our company for the whole 15 years, and most of us had started as consultants even prior to forming the company. One of the things I've noticed is there's a lot of people skipping the process work.
I've never seen that before.
No, and what's happening is the implementation consultants will come in and say, well, we do all those things.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the
There's
process.
process in the tool, right?
Yeah.
There's process and there's a workflow.
There's process in the tool.
Yeah.
The tool is the process, so you don't really need to do that. And what I've seen is a shortcut. So people will say, well, with budgets being tight and with the pressures of getting it done, we can look at this, engineering effort of collaboration and consensus building and all of those things, or we can just implement the tool.
Yeah.
And by the way, this company here has accelerators. And they say, we just use those accelerators and that'll be everything we want. But you know what? Is your company out of the box? There's no way.
No.
There's
Every company's
absolutely no
different.
way. Every company's different.
But even if the thing is, even if it did fit perfectly, we're essentially ignoring the human component of this.
Yes.
Perfect.
And and that's the thing. So even if all those accelerators, and they would, what's in those things? They're sufficient. They would get things done. But if you don't have the human element, factored into that, and you're going to just roll that out, it will fail, regardless of how good or bad.
If you look at the steps of organizational change, if you look at getting buy-in,
Right.
the way you get buy-in is by having people say what's on their minds
Yes.
and make it like they have a say in what's going on.
Sure.
Without that kind of buy-in, there's going to be resistance,
Right.
and people won't like the new tool, or they'll resist wanting to use it, or they won't like the new process. So, having an organizational change program
Right.
where you get the buy-in, you bring people together and collaborate, and you can do that without having huge sessions with 30, 40 people.
Right. And I think that's the issue, right? It's like, we don't have time for that.
Yeah, we had that discussion earlier, didn't we? It's
And it doesn't have to be an all or nothing kind of thing.
No,
That's where
but there needs to be some of it.
Exactly.
And if there's not, I mean,
You're gonna fail.
what do your kids say? If you ask your kids to do their homework, what's the first thing they say? They say, why?
Why? Yeah.
Well, everybody, that's human nature, right? We all will say, why? Why do we have to do this? Why do we have
Mine
to
just
change?
say 5 minutes, but they're not good at telling time. It's like 5 hours later.
5 hours later.
But no, it's
That
it's-
piece is critical, Carlos, you're right.
Exactly, I understand why. But well, thank you so much, David, for coming on with us.
pleasure
It's
chatting.
I
always
always
great.
appreciate this opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good to see you, David.
David?
Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
All right.